Hi, we're Josh
and Ariel Wamsley,
owners of Green Valley Tree LLC, based in North Windham.
We're proud to sponsor Connecticut East This Week and to serve the communities of Windham and New London counties with our tree removal and plant healthcare services.
Visit our website at greenvalleytreeworks.com for a full list of our services or give us a call on 860-234-4041. We look forward to hearing from you.
It's one of the toughest and most dangerous professions in the world, commercial fishing. And we talked to Corey Wheeler Forrest, a fishermom, about her life at sea and her family, the last trap fishing operation in southern New England. Plus, we take a look at other stories making the headlines from around the region. This is Connecticut East This Week. Hello, I'm Brian Scott Smith. It's said to be one of the toughest and most dangerous jobs on the planet, that of commercial fishing. And like so many professions, fewer people are becoming fishermen. Corey Wheeler Forrest is a third-generation commercial fishermom and fish dealer, working out of Saconnet Point in Rhode Island, and her family are the last trap fishing operation in southern New England. Corey has been documenting her life as a woman working in an historically male-dominated profession for years, and now that life has been captured in a limited-time exhibition at the Mystic Seaport Museum. I caught up with Corey on the day her exhibition was due to open for a chat and a look at the amazing photographs she's taken and continues to take of hers and her family's everyday lives. Corey, ever so many thanks for doing the interview with us. You have a brand new exhibit at Mystic Seaport Museum. Talk to us about it.
About a year ago, Kevin O'Leary from the museum contacted me via Instagram. He found me on there and invited me out for coffee to discuss this possibility. And yeah, it took a year to actually happen, and I never thought that I would be seeing my pictures in a museum. So I guess I'm officially a museum relic.
Hardly, but what we'll say is let's just give the listeners a little taste of what it is that they can come to see, because your exhibition will be available, I believe, all the way through the summer of 2023. It's called Through the Lens of a Commercial Fishermom. So tell us more.
So most women who fish do consider themselves and call themselves commercial fishermen, but I liked the play on words because I am also a mom and it still sort of sounds like man without saying commercial fisherwoman.
The exhibit is sort of documenting your family's history and continued work as commercial fisher people, fishermen, fishermoms, all those lovely words. Talk to us a little bit about some of the pictures, because there's about 30, I believe, photographs in this room that we're standing in at the Mystic Seaport Museum. There is also a documentary as well that people can come and see. So we're not going to spoil everything and give everything away, because people need to come down and see it. I'm looking at one of the photographs on the wall. We'll go over and have a look at it. And it's called My Brother Luke. The water is a dark flower and a fisherman is a bee in the heart of her. Talk to us a little bit about the photograph. He's standing there on one of your vessels, I'm assuming, in red, day-glow red safety gear. So talk to us a little bit about it, because it's a very evocative photograph.
It is. I love how the oil gear contrasts with the fogginess, and there's a lot of grays in the photograph. Luke, he is definitely a big part in our work. He runs his own boat, and when he can, he helps my father and I run our business too, but he's not always there every day. But when he is there, it's always sort of a blessing and a huge help, because we're already shorthanded as it is. But he's experienced. Went to Maine Maritime Academy. He's been fishing his whole life, and he makes it in a lot of my photographs. Him and my father as sort of being the staples, and sort of why I do it is as a family and special.
Talk to us about the history, obviously the family history of trap fishing. We're going to ask you specifically about the trap fishing aspect, but it's a very long family history. Your dad is still an active fisherman, and I believe you said he's 76 this year?
He's 76 in June. So my grandfather started it. My grandfather he was a trucker and shipped fish, and trapping back in the day it's been around for possibly 200 years, and in the 1800s there were 200 traps lining the coastline. 1969. So he started in 1947. He had a partner, and they bought the dock that we own today and one of the trap companies. So, we grew up doing it. And back then when they fished and when my dad did this particular trapping, it was only 6 weeks of the year. So they would fish for the 6 weeks, and then they would go work on other boats, or they had other boats. They owned other boats, and he would lobster, gill net the rest of the year. But growing up, it was just, it was part of our culture. I mean, it's just what they talked about. And Luke and my younger brother grew up doing it, and I was a bit of a later bloomer. I kind of had no interest in it. It was very sort of, you walk the docks, there was never any women down there or anything. And it was a summer when I was in college, and my dad said, the guys that are mending nets right now are in their 70s and 80s, and no one is behind them learning how to do this. Even my dad doesn't necessarily want to mend. He can mend a little bit, but so I started mending the nets, and I just fell in love with it. I mean, you're out in this field at 6 a.m. There's, deer and butterflies. I mean, it was just beautiful. And I was just so shocked that I had, waited that long to do it. And then I think it was the following summer, I went down to the dock before heading to the field to mend, and they were shorthanded. My dad said, "You got to come out with us or we can't go." So that was my introduction into the fishing thing. And I was 19 years old. I mean, I was, versus my brothers doing it since they were 6 or whatever. And then I went out on the boat, and I really couldn't believe that I had, waited that long and I'd missed out on it so long. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. And then it took me a little while longer to go back mending after being on the boat.
Can we ask you, we won't ask you a specific age, but can we ask you how long you've been doing it?
I'm 46. So I mean, 26, 27 years. So, and, I went to college. I have a literature degree, and I thought I would, be a teacher or something and do this during the summer. I couldn't stay away. Anytime I sort of tried doing other things, it was like feeling homesick. It kept drawing me back.
What do people say to you? Because you said there aren't a lot of women in the industry. So what's the sort of comments that you get?
So it's not necessarily a prominent theme that I deal with, but it is definitely a reoccurring theme. I think it's more, if I meet someone new or whatever, it's more of disbelief that, because I don't look the part. Versus, my brother, he's got the beard and everything. I remember actually going down to the Fulton Fish Market for the first time to meet some of my buyers in person, and we were going by some stalls, and there's these fish dealers automatically approaching my brother. And my brother's like, "No, I'm not the person you're supposed to talk to. Talk to my sister. she's the boss." So, that sort of thing. And, people, it's just more disbelief. They don't really take me seriously. Or, even on the dock when I first started, these people would come down to the dock and buy fish from us, and they'd be pinching my cheeks. "Oh, you're so cute. Did you have fun?" Like, you'd be like, "Yeah, this is actually like my job. This is what I do every day."
Explain to us, if you would, it's trap fishing. So for the uninitiated of us who, go out with a rod and a line, what is trap fishing? So
the official gear type we use, it's called a floating fish trap, and it's sort of like a giant aquarium. So if you can picture sort of, I think most people know what a lobster pot looks like, where it has these, they call the nozzles, it sort of like funnels the lobsters into a part of the trap that they can't escape. It's the same idea as that, but our nets are the size of a building. And there's 2 parts of it. The first part is called the leader net, and it's 1/4 mile long, and it's basically a wall of net. So the fish hit that, they think they've hit shallow water, and it turns them, and they swim offshore, and that leads them into the actual trap where they can't escape. And we have the mothership, called the mothership, the Maria Mendoza, which is 65-foot boat, and then we tow out 3 30-foot aluminum workboats and a skiff. And when we get out there, we used to fish with about 12 to 15 people, and that's dwindled to about 8 people because it's just hard finding help. At least 2 people go in every boat, and we literally have to row out to our designated spots where we put our hands in the twine, and we are pulling with our hands. And as we're doing that, the bottom of the net is rising, and the fish are coming up to the surface, and they're all alive. So anything that has a size restriction or a regulation that we can't keep, we can throw overboard, and they swim away.
People have seen some TV shows about, obviously, the fishing industry. It is considered one of the most dangerous industries in the world, actually, which I think surprises a lot of people. But then when you see it, I mean, certainly some of the deep sea fishing, how far out do you go? Because I'm guessing it's not deep sea.
It's not deep. We're actually right off the coast of Newport, Rhode Island. We can see the famous mansions from where we are. And then we also have have some nets right off our breakwater off Seconded Point. So though we're not going very far, it's still very dangerous in that we're everything's under a lot of strain. There's 900-pound anchors holding some of these, the frame in where the net goes in. So, lines have snapped. My brother's gotten clotheslined a couple of times with the line snap and he's gone over. Transferring from boat to boat, I've fallen between the boats and almost gotten crushed between the boats. You just really have to always be aware of what's going on around you. And you depend on the crew to look out for dangers. And, essentially our lives are in each other's hands.
Has it changed over the years? I mean, as we said, your dad is still doing it. He's not here right now, and I'm sure he would have plenty of tales. But, as you've said, you've been doing it now since you were 19, so over 20 plus years. How has it changed?
I think the biggest thing, so when I first started, I think I was 19 and there's people on the boat that were, in their 70s. And there was the people on the boat, we had a really good crew who'd been doing it for their whole lives. And now our crew has dwindled to about 8 people, and I guess I'm considered one of the old timers. We try to recruit some, kids' summer jobs and that sort of thing. So there's, some younger kids doing it. It's hard to find people. I think that's sort of what we're up against. In Little Compton, it's far away from anything. Nobody actually lives down there. Like for me, it's a 30-minute drive, and it's one of my most favorite times of the day. It's a beautiful drive, but no one lives down there anymore. So people trying to find transportation and things like that. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that have changed. Is the amount of people to do it. But, I look back that, when I first started, we have 15 people in our boat and we're still catching the same amount of fish, but with half the number of people. So I'm not necessarily working harder. You work just as hard, but the job has to get done. You have to keep going until all the fish are packed.
We do hear, of course, all these stories about quotas and all that type of thing. And you just said, you are still catching the same amount of fish. But, how has that affected sort of the industry, maybe not just yourself, but the industry overall, would you say?
I think that having regulations are really important for the future of the fishery. It just has to be there. And having the regulations, you do see that the fish are around. So without them, there would be less fish. And, there's something to be said for not being able to, say we're only allowed to bring in 50 pounds of a certain fish, and, sea bass, for example. If we were allowed to bring in 500 pounds, the cost of the fish, they would be worth less. So having regulation stuff actually brings the price up of fish a little bit more, even though we can catch less.
Let's talk about a few more of these photographs. Let's take a quick walk across the building here because they're all beautifully put up on the walls. I've just been instantly drawn to a functional tattoo. It says, I can point to the areas where our traps are located. Just talk us through this photograph.
So actually, this photograph was not originally supposed to be part of the exhibit. Someone that I've been working closely with here, Crystal Rose, this was her idea. She said, hey, can you take a picture of your tattoo? I'd love to put it up and actually put the markings on it. So that's how this came, and I think it came out really well. And it truly is a functional tattoo. On the nautical chart, an actual nautical chart, it'll say fish trap area. So boaters and stuff hopefully go around our fish traps, but often they don't.
The collection of photographs is stunning. I take it you've taken all of these photographs, and you've just nodded here, so we'll just let the listeners know that Corey has nodded that there are all her photographs. Why did you then sort of decide to, create, I know you said you didn't start to create an exhibition, but why did you decide to document this?
I think, from the very beginning, I've always noticed things and observed. And, my first day out, realizing how beautiful it was and the light and being up that early in the morning when everybody else is sleeping. And I've just always noticed it. And then, with like an iPhone, it allows you to always have a phone with you. And I think there's that saying, the best camera is the one that you have with you. And, part of it is documenting sort of a visual journal. It's always good for me to go back and see what we were catching, this time last year or the year before, what the weather was like when we set our first anchors. So I've always documented that. And whether it was, written word, I have to write down every single pound of fish we catch anyway, because I have to report it to the state. This is just, sort of taken on a different level for me. And I enjoy it. I mean, fishing is really hard, and it very rarely runs smoothly. Like, we very rarely have a day where something doesn't go wrong or breaks or anything like that. And I think for me, to notice those moments and the poetry and the beauty of it, it keeps me going. Or else, what's the point? If I stop noticing it, I don't know if I'd be able to do it anymore.
Looking at some of these absolutely stunning photographs, I'm looking at one here. It's headlined Little Compton, Rhode Island. It's got a quote from Doug Morano, "Give me calloused hands and tender hearts." Who is that? It's a scene of nets. It's misty, and is that your brother in there?
No, that's Bob Malone, and he actually fished with my grandfather. So I work with two guys out mending nets. It's just the three of us who know how to do it. And he doesn't fish anymore, but he used to fish, and this is sort of his retirement. He looks at it. But, I mean, he's the best guy we have. He is probably one of the only living people that ever built a trap from start to finish. And the last trap they built was in the 1980s. And that's actually the trap that we're working on in that picture. I don't know if there's any original parts to it left. And, the quote is, I think fishermen have this, there's this archetype that they're tough and all this stuff. And these guys really are tough. But, when you talk to them, they're kind. And, when we're out there working, they're telling me stories that I never knew about my grandfather. And, it's really special.
Yeah, not a lot of people get to do that, do they? I mean, again, looking at these photographs, and there is just an amazing assortment of them, all different types, and I'm guessing this is just a small collection of probably photographs that you have taken. Lots of quotes. I mean, we just mentioned one quote in the Misty photograph there. What gave you the inspiration for those quotes?
I read a lot. I've always read, and I think, I started sort of collecting quotes or passages or poems when I was in high school, and I think it was probably a form of procrastination when I should have been doing something else. But things have always stayed out in me. And when I, take these pictures, and some of the captions are my own, but a lot of them, I'm not just like randomly looking up a quote on the internet to go. I usually have something in mind already.
I'm looking at one particular photograph, which is actually used sort of to publicize the exhibition. It is you in fishing gear, and underneath the quote there says influencer. So a lot of you all been asking about my beauty routine, dead fish, jellyfish, brown rain, my skin is burning, or hashtags. Talk to us about that one, because you clean up well. I mean, today you're not in your galoshes, as it were.
Maybe I look the part in this photograph. It might be my one and only selfie ever, and I'm sort of making fun of myself in the picture a little bit, and influencers in general, because no one's asking what their beauty routine is in reality. So that picture was taken on what we'll call Gear Day. And when we take the nets out of the water, they're filthy, and there's jellyfish, and the net is raised all the way up to the top of the mast above your head, and it is hitting you in the face, and there's dead stuff falling on your head. And that was probably a 90-degree day, and you have to wear gear. So there's steam coming out of my oil gear, and my face is covered in mud and jellyfish, and my skin is literally burning.
I have to say, out of all of the photographs, I mean, it is one of the most evocative and sort of just really does capture the whole thing. I mean, all of the photographs are beautiful in their own right, but that photograph of you is just so sort of transcending. You look at it and it's like, if I wasn't standing here speaking to you right now, you'd be thinking, what's that woman thinking about? What's going through her head right now? Why is she doing this? Why does she do that? Yeah,
I mean, it's part of the job. I mean, there's, the last couple of years being shorthanded, we used to have a designated box maker. Like literally someone, we buy the boxes by the pallet and they're flat, and we have an old staple machine that's always breaking. I'm the one getting up at 3:30 in the morning to go down to the dock before we leave at 6 a.m. to make the boxes. And, the gear work and stuff is just part of the job. I mean, there's so many little details that I don't think people realize how their fish end up on their plate. And that's just, it's just part of it. It's not always glamorous.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, we all take this stuff for granted, going into the supermarket or a fishmonger or something and picking up this, and we've got no idea, how it actually got to us, and the amount of effort and everything else that it takes, for us to be able to have that privilege of, having that fish or that piece of meat or whatever. What's your father think about this? Because as we've said throughout this interview, he is still fishing, which is incredible. What's he think about what it is that you're doing here? Because he's going to be coming to visit the exhibition, isn't he?
I mean, I think he's excited. Honestly, this time of year he moves to New Hampshire and he's been working every single day since Christmas, so he'll have a couple days off. So I think he's excited about that. But I haven't really spoke to him too much about it. I think he's proud and all that good stuff, but we'll see what he says when I see him, or his impression of it. He doesn't have social media or anything, so he has not seen any of these pictures probably. So it'll be a big surprise for him, I think.
That's going to be a really nice reaction then, isn't it?
I hope so. I think so. Or else he'll, stay humble, or, fishing is, it's this camaraderie, but it's very much sort of a teasing culture too. I don't, because I'm the girl on the boat, I don't get less abuse than anybody else. So he'll probably tease me.
What do you hope people will get from this exhibition as well? Because there's a lot for them to learn. There's a lot for them to see. Like we said, there's these stunning, beautiful images of yours, the photographs. There's the documentary. They're going to be able to speak to you as well initially as this event kicks off. What are you hoping that they're going to get from this?
Well, I think it gives people a different perspective. And also our fishery itself being so unique. I think most people know what lobstering is and the gear that goes into that. And this particular fishery, most people don't know that it even exists. And having the documentary for people to view is really helpful because it gives the photographs context without me having to label and explain exactly what's going on in every photograph too. I think that would be really difficult. So the combination of having the documentary where you can actually see us in action, and there's even drone footage of the boat and the net from above, and you can see how big it is and how much work is involved. I think that's what I want people to see and appreciate. The work that goes into it, and that it's beautiful and it's special.
A lot of candid moments, not just in the photographs, but I'm guessing in the documentary as well then.
Yeah, there is. I mean, the documentary and us right now, there's no script. So, there's some things in the documentary like, oh, I should have worded that different, or, something like that. But, it's what I know.
What does the future hold? Because like every industry, and as the world continues to evolve, things change. What do you think the future holds for your family and obviously for the trap fishing?
I think, we'll just keep going as long as we can. I mean, it's I know my dad wants to see that for his kids and possibly grandkids. I think that's goes with the territory of fishing, not just our particular fishery. The future is really uncertain, whether it's, a pandemic or falling fish prices, regulations. I think that fishermen to the core always remain optimistic and hopeful. We keep going even when it's bad. Maybe it's because we don't know any better. But, we do it because we love it, not for the money.
Corey, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Success, obviously, with the exhibition. And thank you for joining us on Connecticut East this week.
Thank you for having me.
And you can see Corey's amazing photographic exhibition and watch the documentary until summer by visiting the Mystic Seaport Museum. Details about the exhibit and ticket prices can be found at their website, mysticseaport.org. And if you want to see more of Corey's work and life, you can follow her at her Instagram account at fishandforrest. That's FISHANDFORREST.
Green Valley Tree LLC is proud to sponsor Connecticut East this week. Contact Green Valley Tree LLC for all your tree removal and plant health care needs and more. Find us at greenvalleytreeworks.com or call 860-234-4041.
Time now for a look at other stories making the headlines this week. Hundreds of students at Connecticut College came recently to support the first rally by school faculty and staff as pressure continues to mount on the school's president, Catherine Bergeron, to resign over a cancelled school fundraiser which caused the resignation of the Dean of Equity and Inclusion almost a month ago, as well as other issues of alleged bullying behaviour by her towards faculty and staff members. Ashfan Jafar is faculty and professor of sociology at the college and had strong words for the president and her administration.
Our labor exploited, being asked to do more with less, while the administration just does less. The board would have us believe our concerns are new and shocking, but we know better. We know what these 9 years have been like, and so now we say, enough. 9 years is long enough.
Virginia Anderson is an associate professor of theatre at the college and told the crowd what was happening now will be remembered.
So listen up, friends. History has its eyes on you. And trustees, if you are watching, if you are listening, history has its eyes on you with what we have passively accepted. No more. No more.
A college theatre production of the Sondheim musical Into the Woods was set for March 3rd through the 5th, but was cancelled by student cast and crew at the 11th hour in support of the students' protests. Bergeron reacted to the news by sending an email urging the students to consider finding other ways to support their fellow students without cancelling the production. And on Wednesday morning, Bergeron sent out a school-wide email addressing several of the students' concerns, but made no mention of whether she would be stepping down from her position. And in his first statement to the press since resigning from Connecticut College, Dr. Rodman King, the former Dean of Equity and Inclusion, said he was proud of the students, staff and faculty for demanding change, and added he believed it is vital they sustain their activism through and beyond the spring break. King has recently taken up a new post as an Assistant Dean of Equity, Inclusion and Belonging at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. The president of Electric Boat, Kevin Graney, delivered his annual legislative update at a breakfast attended by local business leaders and legislators in Groton recently. His message about the company and the submarine business in general was optimistic and upbeat. Graney started his speech by saying that EB is hiring and in 2022 employed an additional 3,900 new staff, and they're looking for more.
Approximately 25% of the new hires were engineers and designers. We hired 20% of the graduating class from the University of Connecticut as engineers to Electric Boat. 53% of our hires were in operations, and the remaining 22% were in our support functions. We're going to continue to hire for the foreseeable future, and in 2023, we hope to welcome an additional 5,000 employees to our team, so this is the highest rate of hiring in our history.
Graney also thanked the state's federal delegation on their continued efforts to bring submarine work and money to the state, and the company will also be looking to spend over $1 billion with local Connecticut suppliers and businesses across the state over 5 years as part of their local supply chain. U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal was also a key speaker at the event and underscored the importance of submarine building in the U.S. and the defense sector in general because of threats from countries like China and Russia.
We face, as a nation, the biggest threat to our defense industrial base and the biggest challenge since World War II. We have to do more stuff in production. We have to make more artillery, ammunition, drones, tanks, armored vehicles than since World War II.
Electric Boat has received significant financial investment from the federal government for submarines, which have become popular over the last several years due to the unstable state of geopolitics around the world. Young people aged 13 to 17 years of age in New London have been getting the chance to find out what it's like and what it takes to be a modern-day police officer. The New London Police Department is running a 10-week youth police academy, which they believe is the first in the state. Brian Wright is the chief of New London Police and explained why they decided to invite this age group to be part of an academy experience.
I thought it was important that we have that connection to our young people because many times they're unaware of the profession, and we thought it was important that we could broaden their perspective, and hopefully there might be some young officers in the group, but more importantly, to build that rapport, that relationship, which is so necessary in this day and age.
Wright says the initial youth academy has been so successful they have a waiting list of young people wishing to attend. Serenity Francis is 16 years old and Isaac Lopez is 14 years old, and both are attending the first Youth Police Academy.
Honestly, I just wanted to see what it's like a day in the life as a police officer, and you've obviously seen like police officer point of views from civilians, and I thought it would be a really good experience seeing police officers from their point of view.
See like what cops do since I was a little kid, so I just wanted to learn like how to become a cop and figure out stuff that you have to do in order to do that.
The course is taught by current serving police officers and gives an unvarnished look at what it takes to be a police officer in today's society. That's all from us for this edition. Do send us your questions and story ideas to the show via our website at connecticut-east.com or Facebook or Twitter at Connecticut East and on Instagram at Connecticut East This Week. And you can listen to the show again on our social platforms, on demand, and by asking your smart speaker to play Connecticut East This Week podcast. And please like, follow, and share on your social media too. I'm Brian Scott Smith. Thank you for listening.